Thank you, Helen, and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to CPA Australia's webinar, Policy Think Tank, An Ethical Business is a Sustainable Business. I'm Kimberly Singh, and I am CFO at Populous and Accelerate You, and co-author of Love the Wellbeing Journal, and I have the privilege of chairing today's event. We have attendees and participants joining from all over Australia today for this very exciting event, this format being the first of its kind here in Australia for CPA. I would first like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land from where I am presenting to you today, the Wongal people of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I extend this acknowledgement to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who may be joining us today. I would also like to acknowledge that today we are joined by the CPA Australia President and Chairperson of the Board, Maren Kelsall, FCPA, Deputy President, Professor Dale Pinto, FCPA, Rosemary Sinclair, AM, FCPA, and Board Director Warren McRae, FCPA. Thank you for joining us today. If during any of the proceedings today you have any technical questions, please message Helen, the host, using the chat box. We also encourage you enter in any comments you have in the chat box today, if there's any insights or important mentions to make as we progress today's debate. The Policy Think Tank events are a policy and advocacy initiative, along with the Centre of Excellence, aimed at engaging members in CPA Australia's thought leadership and advocacy activities. As a member of CPA Australia's Centre of Excellence for Ethics and Professional Standards, I am honored to be able to host this event, which for us as CPA Australia Thought Leadership Committee, we felt would provide us with an opportunity to engage CPA Australia members with relevant issues that CPA members would care about. Having participation from real CPAs from around the country will provide us with real-world insight and a perspective we may not have heard or may not be aware of unless a forum such as this existed. And what better topic to discuss today than ethics, and considering an ethical business is a sustainable business. We live and breathe our values. We are transitioning to become a net zero business. We are taking all of the steps required to rectify the hurt we have caused. Everyone on this call today has heard at least one of these statements in the past week. Ethics in business and within our lives has risen to be an important element of our working lives as business leaders and finance professionals. It would come as no surprise to learn that courses on ethics in business schools has become the largest growing subject, and future accountants and professionals are enrolling to future-proof their careers and to ensure that they can build a solid ethical foundation. Our CPA profession holds integrity at the highest of standards. As CPAs, we hold dearly our reputation to provide sound advice and to be that trusted advisor. And so you may ask, what does it mean to be an ethical and trusted advisor? The answer for all of us would be unique, and a question that may be considered today by the teams. A recent Edelman Trust Barometer survey for 2021 in Australia found that employers are now seen as one of the most trusted institutions in Australia, with 78% of people trusting their employer over just any business. Business being 63%, government at 61%, and media at just 51%. Greater expectations for CEOs and business leaders to address and solve today's challenges is real, even greater than expecting politicians and governments to make changes. Considering our obligations as professional accountants, the expectation that Australian business leaders do the right thing for the people of Australia further highlights the importance of getting this right and leading by example. Holding ourselves and leaders accountable is at the heart of ESG statements, environmental, social, and governance targets, and commitments to do right by the people, planet, and society. However, is this simply a marketing ploy, or is action really evolving as a result of these modern practices? I'm really looking forward to hearing the different perspectives we will be presented with today, as I'm sure all of you are as well. And I just want to leave off with an angel saying, for you to think about. If a tree falls in a forest and no one is around to hear it, does it make a sound? So I just want you to consider this. If a business does an ethical and sustainable act and they didn't let you know about it, did it really happen? Let's go over the debate formalities. Each speaker will have 4 minutes to speak, and there will be 6 speakers in total, 3 for each team, the affirmative team and the negative team. A bell will sound at 3 minutes and 30 seconds to signal that the speaker will wrap up their thoughts. The bell will sound like this. To ensure fairness amongst the teams at the 4 minute and 15-second mark, the speaker will be muted. We want to thank each and every one of the participants for volunteering to participate in today's event. A lot of time and preparation went into today, so thank you for committing to this event. I ask that the audience appreciate their contribution and recognize that this exercise was designed with the intent of encouraging individuals to think creatively, critically, and to most of all, for all of us to have fun. We are very excited that we have an enthusiastic group of members joining us to discuss and debate the topics of ethics and sustainability, exploring whether an ethical business is a sustainable business. The debate will be lighthearted and engaging and explore this topic. There will be some polling along the way for you to have your say as well. Please engage in the chat respectfully, and also note the debate is a mechanism to explore ideas and encourage thought leadership. The views expressed do not represent the official policy positions of CPA Australia, the Centre of Excellence, or the participants. And remember, there is not one right or wrong answer to the issues we are exploring. Also, a big thank you to Andrew Diawase and Brendan O'Connell, member and chair of the Centre of Excellence, for mentoring our teams today as experts in their field. During today's webinar, we want to hear what you think, and so part of that is completing some polls. You'll see a pop-up come up to the right-hand side of your screen, and we'll have 45 seconds per question for the polls. So please select your answer for each of the polls. To start, we'll have a test question on the right-hand side. And so the test poll question today is, hand on heart, are you wearing pajamas right now? So the options are A, no. B, 100% yes. C, business on top, pajamas on bottom, perhaps. And D, I literally took them off a minute ago. So just to have some fun here, we've got 45 seconds on the poll. So please make your selection just on the right-hand side there. Thank you. I see those of you who have just recently joined, we're just doing a poll right now on that right-hand side. And so there's just a few seconds remaining on that one, and then we'll see what your answers come out to. And the poll has ended. And 54% of you have said no. We've got 100%, 8% on yes, very good. And 10% on business on top, pajamas on the bottom, which I know it's very popular nowadays with meetings. All right, so now we've got 2 questions that we will ask you before we begin the debate. Poll question number 1, what aspect is essential to ensuring a business is ethical? And this is multiple choice question. So A, being environmental awareness, B, economic stability and growth, C, a strong governance framework, D, a culture of doing the right thing, E, doing right by the shareholders, or F, all of the above. So have your say there. And we will be doing further polls at the end of the debates as well. So appreciate your participation in the polls today. As I know, we have a large group, and it's one way for us to engage all of the members in the conversation. As well, don't be afraid to use the chat box and just send messages for everyone to see and insights that you may have on today's topic. So what aspect is essential to ensuring a business is ethical? So looking forward to seeing your responses here on this one. Okay, so A for environmental awareness, we have 13%. The winning response is a culture of doing the right thing. So that's very important, isn't it? And all of the above. So we have tallied there 76% there with a culture of doing the right thing and all of the above. Very good. And that is one topic as the Center of Excellence for Ethics and Professional Standards. We do chat about culture and how that plays into ethics quite a bit in the meetings that we have. And let's go to the second poll question now, Helen, please. So poll question number 2. Does a business being sustainable also determine that it is ethical? It's a yes or no question. And this will be really interesting to hear from the groups today, both from the positive side as well as the negative side, to really understand the linkage between ethics and sustainability and what the teams put together for both sides of that. So let's see what the responses come out for this one. So as I said earlier, I encourage everyone, if you have a comment, enter that in the chat box for everyone, and we'll review those as we go along as well. And thank you for participating in the polls. Let's see what this one comes out to. And so we had 49% being no, does a business being sustainable also determine that it is ethical? And 29% as yes. So thank you for that. And we'll get started on the debate today. So first off the rank, we have Ryan Kennedy, CPA, for the positive team of an ethical business is a sustainable business. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you, Kimberly. And good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're tuning in around the world for the CPA Australia Great Debate. As Kimberly has already mentioned, today our topic for debate is an ethical business a sustainable business? As the affirmative team, we believe this statement to be accurate and true and is in keeping with the sentiment for both Australian business culture, but also business culture worldwide. In order to understand the topic, it's important to define what is sustainability. The Oxford Business Dictionary defines sustainability as the ability to continue at the same level for a period of time. This definition may be interpreted around internal levels of ability. However, in today's business environment, it's more important than ever to make sure we're looking at the external levels of measurement, which affect all stakeholders of a business, whether that be employees, customers, suppliers, lenders, regulators, shareholders, and the greater public interest. The business world is littered with everyday examples of how sustainability-focused businesses affects the approach and mindset of external stakeholders, whether that be employees, particularly those just entering the job market, wanting to work for a business with a positive approach to sustainability, which then directly affects the business's rates of staff recruitment and retention, or when businesses are finding that their customers, whether they be individuals, governments, or other businesses, want more sustainable products, where industries that are perceived as unsustainable are finding it harder to attract financing. All of these factors mean that sustainability directly affects the key performance indicators of revenue, cost, and risk, which are the ultimate drivers of business performance. As the first speaker for the affirmative team, I'll be discussing the true costs and benefit of ethically operated businesses in a sustainable environment. Our second speaker today, Rebelin, will be discussing the real-world cases and application of how businesses in Australia and around the world have been reactive in their ethical obligations and the issues that they have presented to the public. Finally, our third speaker, Kazita, will discuss being a proactive business to ethical obligations can thrive in the current business environment with some real examples, along with rebuttals to the negatives comments. Ethics seeks to understand and inform the underlying structure of human and business choices. Ethical reasoning helps people and businesses navigate complexity and to choose a path that is right or best given the alternatives. It helps answer the question, what am I doing? And by reflecting on our values, principles, and purpose. Today, the negative team will try to explain that the costs and true underlying benefits derived from businesses operating ethically are underwhelming. This is simply not correct, and the data directly shows this to not be the case. A report written by Deloitte in 2020 called The Ethical Advantage for the Ethics Centre Australia showed that an increase in ethical behaviour could raise Australians' average income by $1,800 a year, therefore lifting the nation's GDP by $45 billion. An increase in company performance based on ethical perceptions can also increase a return on asset of 7%. It also reveals a host of individual and collective benefits for Australians across wages, trust, and mental health. In the same report, it showed ethical behaviour in infrastructure are associated with better financial outcomes for businesses. Businesses which act ethically and have ethical infrastructure in place will have improved relations with stakeholders and able to build on greater trust with the broader public. This leads to reduced production costs from improved supplier relations, increased work engagement from positive employee relations, lower compliance and administrative costs from business and government relations, and higher sales from stronger customer relations. As many of you tuning in today will have the designation of CPA, it is vitally important as professional accountants, our skills and competencies are always underpinned by ethics and integrity. Therefore, if money and profit are just the condition of getting business, your ethics is the price. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. That was really interesting. I really enjoyed hearing about the stats around the return on assets of 7% for the funds that you put in and towards those ethical practices. So that was really interesting. Thank you for that. Next up, we have Melissa Reed from the negative side, and let's hear that side from Melissa. Thanks, Melissa.
Thank you, Kimberly, and thank you for your introduction and your insightful opening comments today. Thank you to the audience also for joining us, and of course our opposing team for engaging in a debate that, as Kimberly said, we hope you all enjoy. If you just skim over the statement, an ethical business is a sustainable business, at face value, you might be willing to accept it. It seems logical. I'm glad to see in the polling chat that most people will agree with us already, though, that being ethical doesn't mean that you are necessarily sustainable. And today, the negative team will continue to definitively demonstrate that there's just no evidence to support a direct link between the two. Being ethical doesn't mean a business is sustainable. We want to be clear that we're not advocating that business should be unethical, but that being ethical does not always mean a sustainable business. So as Ryan touched on some of the key points of today's topic, we also wanted to highlight the aspects for us. Today, when we refer to a business, we're meaning an organisation or an entity engaged in commercial, industrial or professional activity for profit. And as Ryan highlighted, ethics is the framework applied within a business to deal with what's right and wrong, how people should act when they're faced with a particular situation. But let's not forget that this right and wrong is not just limited to the idea of sustainability. It's across the board for business. Let's not confuse the two. Ethics doesn't equal sustainability. It's possible, right, that an unethical business could also be sustainable? We've considered sustainability as meeting the needs of today without compromising the ability of generations ahead of us to meet theirs. There are three widely accepted pillars to this, as Kimberly highlighted: economic, environmental, and social, profits, planet, and people. And a sustainable business is one that has all three in harmony, not just the current trend of focusing on planet. Now, Milton Friedman made it clear in the 1970s that the only possible connection between these is economic. A business has a social responsibility to increase its profits, and planet and people come into play when they help increase profits. Any business promoting profits or services with an emphasis on planet and people elements of sustainability are really just using these as clever marketing tools. Let's look at Tesla for a minute, a company producing electric cars, motivated by a stated mission to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy, while its founder and CEO is caught up in carbon emission scandals for Bitcoin. And how does tourism, space travel fit with the planet agenda? The marketplace is full of these inconsistent ethics examples, and they demonstrate that business only has one motivation, and that's to consider sustainability for planet and people if it helps them improve its profits. Or, as Ryan pointed out, to avoid risk, to reduce its borrowing costs, maybe to preempt legislation or regulation, again, all with the motivation of improving its bottom line. So whether you want to believe it or not, business is only concerned with economic sustainability. Why do you think we see industry buying offsets, not changing their behaviours? Net zero, it's not zero. So we're left asking, is it ethical to market your sustainability for planet and people if your motivation is economic sustainability above all else? We think not. My team today of Yulia and Grace will continue to demonstrate that there are marketplace examples that show there is no direct link between ethics and sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. That was really interesting, and really talking about ultimate, it comes down to the ultimate profit, because that's what the shareholders are ultimately after as well, isn't it? And that the poll, I believe it was 53%, said that they weren't linked, which I thought was really interesting, and you brought that back. So let's see how that comes out at the end of the debate as well, when the responses come through for that question. Now we've got Revelyn joining us from the Positive team, and look forward to hearing what you have to say, Revelyn.
Thank you, Kimberly. Good afternoon. We have heard from the other team their stand on this issue. I am here to proudly defend our opinion. Companies which are ethical and sustainable create a competitive advantage over its competitors. CSR, or corporate social responsibility, serves as a management tool and stakeholders' platform to keep management accountable. Now, let me reiterate the importance of ethics to be a sustainable business by citing some of the famous corporate scandals. Firstly, who wouldn't forget that the collapse of Enron because of corporate greed shook the public's confidence in the accounting profession. Enron had violated several accounting standards and manipulated its credit rating. Moreover, Enron's toxic corporate culture was a classic risk factor of management fraud. For instance, it had a brutal performance review where employees who performed well were rewarded by corporate perks and uncapped merit-based bonuses. Were these practices sustainable? Clearly not. Enron's share prices dropped from its all-time high of $90.56 to just 26 cents, and some 4,000 employees were let go after the company declared bankruptcy. Enron's external auditor, Arthur Andersen's reputation was dragged to the mud as well. Due to corporate greed and falsifying accounting documents, both Enron and Arthur Andersen collapsed. Here in Australia, the banking and financial sectors were perceived as the least ethical industries, obtaining just an index of negative 18. For example, Australia's largest bank, the Commonwealth Bank of Australia, got involved in a huge fraud scheme from 2003 to 2012. Its financial planners manipulated their clients' files and forged documents to invest their clients' needs in extremely high-risk investments, with the aim of earning higher commissions and bonuses. As a matter of fact, such fraudulent advice caused hundreds of Australians to lose their life savings, and as a result, CBA paid $52 million compensation in 2014. Had CBA acted ethically, it could have avoided paying these hefty fines and did not lose some of its customers. On the other hand, not-for-profit charities were not spared by these fraudulent scandals. In 2005, Singapore's National Kidney Foundation management manipulated its 2004 annual reporting. They cited that 52 cents out of every Singaporean dollar donation went to its beneficiaries, that in fact, only 10 cents were used for its dialysis costs. In addition, NKF awarded $7 million worth of contracts to two companies run by the CEO's close friend. The CEO was also paid a huge salary of $600,000 and accused of squandering the institution's money for private expenses. In the end, NKF's annual donations plummeted from $73 million to $21 million, and the organization footed $12 million penalty fees. So, what can we learn from this? It is very simple. Businesses should not only focus on short-term earnings, but rather help resolve long-term issues to make this world more thriving and successful
45
for all
seconds
stakeholders.
left.
We professional accountants know that if money and profit are just the conditions of getting business, your ethics is a prize, and we are doomed to repeat the past.
Thank you, Revelyn. That was really interesting. I especially appreciated you mentioning the CBA scandal and everything that's going on with banking. And there's the banking and financial oath now that many of the bankers are signing up to say, we will be practicing ethical practices within our business, which is really interesting. And a lot of people are signing up to that, especially young professionals. So thank you for that. Next up, we have Yulia Firestone, and this is from the negative team. Thanks, Yulia.
Thank you, Kimberly Rebelin. First of all, I don't like the definition of negative team, and I would like to probably make it clear. The comparison of Enron doesn't seem a bit correct to us, because you can't compare a model citizen with a criminal. What Enron did was actually illegal. Our team trying to make a point that if you're ethic neutral, you're very sustainable, you're very profitable, you're very successful. So can a business ever be truly ethical? So there is no agreed definition of an ethical business, with many people having their own interpretation of the term. Typical definitions refer to rightness or wrongness of behavior, but not everyone agrees on what is morally right or wrong, good or bad, ethical or unethical. Different people understand ethics in different ways. What is ethical to me may be not ethical to you, making it hard to define the rules when it comes to running an ethical business. If we take a black and white approach, we will find that some businesses are unable to follow ethics. For example, a steakhouse could never operate ethically as it relies on animals being slaughtered for food. Tobacco companies, breweries, distilleries, winemakers distribute potentially unethical products. So does it really mean that business is incompatible with ethical standards? Just because the purpose of this business is not right to most of the people. Nevertheless, those businesses remain very sustainable, they're very profitable, they will keep going. As we can see, it is hard to run a business without running into ethical issues. Businesses often have to make decisions between being profitable and being ethical. In our modern world, profitability is a key to the business. The success of business is measured in dollar value. Without taking ethics into consideration, if a business wants to be seen as successful, it needs to make profit. Embedding genuine ethical values in a company does not guarantee success. The only advantage ethical companies have is mitigated risk. Therefore, if, say, you have good, solid risk management practices in place, there is no need to go above and beyond the bare legal minimum required in environmental protection, say, or anti-discrimination policy. If you just follow the dictates of the law or signals of the market, it's good enough. And I'm talking Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, Amazon, Walmart, Nestle. We're not going to deny that making a name of yourself as an ethical business can help you attract a higher price to your services. Again, at the end of the day, it will be the same as people, say, companies that focus on just following the laws. Also, we would like to mention that ethical values must be authentic. They cannot be temporary. They cannot be followed when it's convenient, and they cannot be forgotten when it's not convenient. That will just make the situation worse. And I'm glad that Rebelin put up an example of around the Royal Banking Commission, where the huge gap between what the financial institutions were saying and what they were doing was revealed. Say, the Commonwealth Bank's 2014
45 seconds left.
addresses employee engagement and inclusion. Its initiatives designed to prevent financial crime and deliver financial well-being to Australians. And obviously, we all know, thank you, Rebelin, you already mentioned that, what happened next. That's it.
Thank you, Yulia. I especially enjoyed you talking about that there's unethical business practices that exist, or businesses such as steakhouses that people would consider being unethical. And then it really comes down to the consumers dictating and actually purchasing them and really driving their business growth. So I really enjoyed that. So thank you for that. And next up we have Katiza. Thanks, Katiza.
Good afternoon, everyone. Proactive businesses with ethical obligations do thrive in the current business environment, as they identify material focus areas, set meaningful and measurable goals for each focus area. They identify metrics to monitor performance over a period of time for each goal. That enables them to leverage their core competencies to maximize their ESG and financial performance. They integrate sustainability into existing roles and responsibilities of leaders and departments, which is inclusive, and they adopt a technology to address ESG goals and track performance for each goal. Now, we have 3 examples of successful ethical businesses which are not implementing temporary ethics, and they are very authentic. Our first example is Unilever, which set a correct sustainable goals with a 10-year living plan, so by no means temporary, which involved embedding sustainability into its core working practices, procedures, and corporate strategy, a framework which set clear goals and metrics and involved adopting a holistic, inclusive approach. The results after 10 years, Unilever has moved to 100% renewable energy and 65% reduction in greenhouse emissions from its factories. Another example, SAP Global, by implementing a board-led governance framework which outlines responsibilities relating to sustainability for board members, the leadership team, and regional operational teams. They established a sustainability panel composed of a diverse group of international stakeholders to embed sustainability into SAP's core business. The result, SAP was named the most sustainable software company in the world according to the Dow Jones Sustainability Index in 2019. Our last example, Walmart, which also Julia quoted, used technology to promote sustainability across its supply chain by building a digital platform called Gigaton, which aims to avoid a gigaton of greenhouse emissions from the global value chain by 2030. It engages with 2,300 suppliers to reduce their emissions by setting goals in the areas of energy, waste, nature, and product use. The result, between 2017 and 2019, 230 million metric tons of emissions have been avoided. Yes, businesses want to improve their bottom line, but why can't they do this ethically, which benefits everyone involved in the business? Ethics and integrity have a direct positive impact on short-term and long-term sustainability, revenue, costs, risk, and return. Ethical behavior builds greater trust, enables stronger customer relationships, leads to improved relationships with suppliers, investors, and leads to increased positive engagements with employees. Ethical practices provide opportunities for greater efficiency, productivity, and profitability. Ethics enables fair treatment of all stakeholders, which leads to ethics and profits coexisting together. If money and profits are just a condition of getting business, your ethics is the price. Thank you.
Thank you, Katiza. I really appreciated you talking about Unilever and SAP and the steps that they've taken in their journey on sustainability. That was really interesting. And especially enjoyed hearing about just supply chain involvement and how you can really improve and really grow your business with looking at the whole, every stakeholder within the business. So thank you for that. Next up, we have Grace, and this is the final speaker for the counter team. Thanks, Grace.
Thank you, Kimberly. So to conclude our argument, drawing from the points that my team members have made, there are no holistic connection between ethics and sustainability. So firstly, we know that business ethics deals with how people should act when conducting a business. And this framework has to be applied across all areas of the organization, not just limited to the sustainability aspect, not temporary, but rather a lifetime commitment. A crucial point for us here is that different people will define, perceive, and accept ethics very differently. What is ethical to one person may be unethical to another, and that makes the concept of running an ethical business a very gray area, as Julia has discussed in her example of the steakhouse. Therefore, we argue from an ethical neutral standpoint, it is necessary to follow the law of the land because most of the ethical problems are embedded in the law. Given the gray area of the issue, following the laws could be already considered ethical enough. Secondly, we define sustainability as meeting the needs of today without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. The current media framed our attention so much on going green for sustainability. But it is only one part of the word. A sustainable business is the one that addresses and harmonizes all three pillars of sustainability, which are the economics, environmental, and social aspects, and they translate into profit, planet, and people. Having said that, economic sustainability really is the prerequisite of everything. Business needs to make a profit to survive, because it is no use running a business if our practice makes us go out of business. This brings us back to the topic. There is an economically sustainable business might not be ethical in the eyes of many. And if we reverse the equation, flip it, an unethical business can still be very sustainable economically. Take Coca-Cola and PepsiCo as an example. As of 30th of June 2021, PepsiCo is considered one of the 17 most ethical companies in the world. And on the contrary, Coca-Cola is notoriously considered unethical for the business practice. If you read on the New York Times newspaper, many people in Mexico believe that drinking Coke can cure diabetes. Where did that come from? Right? Because of all the advertising campaign, because of the way they conduct the business to make money. But if we compare the growth of these two businesses, they are performing extremely well. They have so much cash reserve for huge advertising campaign, and they are unlikely to stop operating anytime soon. And talking of the example of Unilever from the affirmation team, in 2016, the company was found to be buying palm oil from Olam and Wilmar. Those companies linked with both deforestation and human and worker right abuses. So how did it make that ethical? And talking about going green, there are no comprehensively sustainable practices at this stage. Humans still need to take resources from the earth to function. So as long as humans exist, we exist and function like the way we are doing now, using power, driving cars. We practically trading a kind of pollution for another.
45 seconds left.
Governments are pushing for EV, but you see lithium, nickel, and cobalt are the key metals we use to make EV battery, and we have to do mining to gather those material. Hydropower is considered as renewable and green energy, but to produce hydropower, we must build huge dams and alter the flow of the rivers for our own gain. Thinking of the environmental impacts of the practice, is it truly sustainable? Is it ethical? So we might not ever fully achieve all three pillars of sustainability, but what we can do is to understand the trade-off that we make, follow the law of the land, and conduct our life mindfully so that we know the reason behind our ways of life and the impact it may cause. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. That was an excellent way to end the debate today. Thank you. I really enjoyed you talking about especially looking at the law of the land. A lot of people think the law, depending on the country you're in, that would be ethical, just following that law. But as we know, that's not always the case, just to follow the law. And especially at the sustainable practices of hydro and batteries. I've always wondered that myself with the solar panels. There's only so much of a shelf life on solar panels, and then you have to actually dispose of them. So then it's the effect of the disposal and going to a rubbish tip from there. So thank you, Grace. Now we're going to follow up with the two poll questions that we've asked early on. So now considering what we've discussed today in the debate, poll question number 3 was that first question that we had asked as well. So if you want to pull up the polling there on the right-hand side, we've got 45 seconds. And so what aspect is essential to ensuring a business is ethical? And so the same options that we had at the beginning of the poll, we've got A, environmental awareness, B, economic stability and growth, C, a strong governance framework, D, a culture of doing the right thing, E, doing right by the shareholders, and F, all of the above. So take a moment there to consider your options and click submit. And thanks to the 6 speakers today. We've got some time left. So after the polling questions, we're going to do a bit of Q&A to hear from the teams as well. So make your selection there. And let's see what the results are. So similar results as before, a culture of doing the right thing as well as all of the above. So actually those two came down a little bit, and then we've got some selections for a strong governance framework as well as environmental awareness. So that probably had a lot to do with the discussions that we had today. So thanks for that polling question, and thanks for participating in that. And poll question number 4, you'll remember this question from the beginning as well. Does a business being sustainable also determine that it is ethical? And so we had a majority saying no at the beginning. Let's see how the results come out this turn. And I encourage, if you have any questions to either any of the speakers or just general questions, please enter them in the chat box and we can discuss it with the debating teams after the polls finish. And so it's almost closed here. Let's see the responses. Does a business being sustainable also determine that it is ethical? And so 57% of the responses are no. And so I believe we had 56% the first time that we asked this. So thank you for participating. And I just want to give a big thank you to the 6 speakers again for speaking and really providing a really good argument for the affirmative as well as the counter side on that as well. Can I just ask Ryan from the affirmative side, how did you feel I want to hear actually how you feel the counter team went today and the argument that they provided within the debate?
Yeah, when I turned on the TV this morning and I saw Crown Resorts and Casino gets to keep its casino license, I kind of went, this debate's probably not going to go too well. I think it just kind of comes down to, and I think the negative team kind of reiterated it, is like what your definition of sustainability is, because you just need to look at Crown. You would say it was unethical behaviour, anti-money laundering, but they get to continue with their casino license under the realms of government restrictions for the next 2 years and try to reshape their business. Clearly, there is a push for them to become more ethical, and we will probably see into the future that they will become more sustainable. But I think, yeah, at the way that they kind of structured their argument is that you can still be sustainable even if ethics isn't probably at the forefront of the business's governance.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for that, Ryan. And Melissa, do you want to say something in terms of the positive argument from today's debate?
Yes, thanks, Kimberly. I guess our team definitely appreciates how hard this has been for both teams and how much we've learnt throughout the process. And I know when I first read the question, I would have probably naturally lent to the affirmative argument. And I think that they have done a fine job today of pointing to business and ethics. And I think the trick that we found in unpacking that is just what Ryan reflected on, is that, ethics, what does that mean for profit, but then what does it mean for planet, and what does it mean for people, and not just focusing in on green sustainability, I guess. So yeah, it's been a very interesting journey for all of us.
Yeah, sounds good. No, really appreciate your participation, and it was great hearing from both sides of it. So thanks for that.
No, thanks.
Can anyone on the within the teams, I'm not sure who spoke about integrate sustainability, but there's been a question just to define integrate sustainability. Can anyone make a comment on that? I'm not sure, Ryan or Melissa, if you can make a comment on that. What is integrate sustainability? All right, we might have to get some.
I'm not actually sure what integrates sustainability is. It might just mean the term or phrasing of integrating it within the business. But yeah, I'm not sure which speaker actually kind of covered off on that. But yeah, it might just be kind of clarification as to integrating that into the businesses and their governance framework.
Yeah, sounds good. Does anyone else from the debate team, would they like to make any sort of comments or reflections on today's discussions? Grace, did you have anything to say, or Khatiza, Rebelin, or Yulia?
So this debate has been really eye-opening for me because I'm from Tasmania, so we are very big on that going green and protect the environment and how to. And I have always been thinking of sustainability as going green. But after we dive deep into the debate and conversation, we realized that there's so many other aspects of the business to consider about. Not just the environmental aspect, we have to look after our people. We have to look after the shareholder because we act on their behalf to run a business. So it is really like a delicate balancing act. And yeah, so it's very important as with all the current matter with the environment, environmental problem at the moment. We need to really keep that in mind. But as a business, as accountant, we need to be aware of other aspects of the business as well and try to approach it holistically and mindfully. So that is what I really learned from today, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's great, Grace. I also heard the other day, or part of that Edelman Trust Barometer survey, is that Australians are actually more scared of climate change than they are of contracting COVID-19. So I thought that was really interesting that climate change is still very much top of mind for the general public out there. Thank you everyone for joining today. Very much appreciate the mentors and all the work that went into preparing the discussions today. And also big thank you to Ryan, Melissa, Rebelin, Yulia, Khatiza, and Grace for discussing that today. And I'll hand it back to Helen.
Thank you very much, Kimberly, and also the great debate team members. And thank you to everyone for your participation today. In the next 3 working days, you will receive an evaluation survey accompanied by the recording of this webinar. We really appreciate your feedback as it is extremely valuable to CPA Australia to help us to deliver better events for you. Thanks again, and we look forward to welcoming you to another CPA Australia webinar soon. Have a great night. See you, everyone.